the Bikeshed Podcast, where we talk about all things software engineering, coffee, and not if, but when the AI bubble will finally burst. I'm your co-host, the Titan of TypeScript, Scott K. And alongside with me are my co-hosts, a man whose GitHub repo contains the next 5 JavaScript trends, Matt Hamlin. And my other co-host, with the spice so nice, he never repeats anything twice, Dylan Spicy Take Curry. Fellas, what are we cooking up today?
No idea.
Today we're who's going to take it off? All right. Today we want to talk a little bit about this topic that's sort of bubbled up through a few different blog posts and podcast episodes that we've stumbled across. And I think other people are probably thinking, I think this is a general idea that a lot of people are maybe considering. But the basic gist of the episode is going to be is the web screwed? That's maybe the non-profane way to describe our topic.
Apparently, I've already made us explicit content, so I apologize. You could probably just say what you're thinking. But
yeah, that's true. That's true. We are. I think on iTunes we are an explicit podcast.
We are on Spotify too. So my fault.
Yeah. So the general gist, and maybe the title of the episode is going to be "Is the web fucked?" or "The web is fucked," like a statement instead of a question. This kind of comes about from this very short, unrelated podcast that I don't actually listen to, but I sort of stumbled across the episode of from 2.5 Admins. I don't know if we have any listener overlap between that podcast and ours, but they had an episode where they talked about a new web, or what it could look like to create a new web, and then sort of a blog post from there that sort of riffed on it and talked a little bit more about what would it look like to reboot the web. But before we dig into something new, maybe we should talk a little bit about why do we feel like the web is fucked or in a really shitty spot. And that kind of gets to another source, and we'll sort of link these all in our episode notes, but another source about there's these websites that are now doing this weird thing where they show effectively sort of a kind of a CAPTCHA system before showing the website to the user, but it's meant for to sort of prevent AI from hitting the content. So there's this system called Anubis, which a number of open source projects have adopted, and a number of other sort of sites have adopted, where it just basically forces you to do some computation on your computer in order to verify that that you're a human, which seems oddly opposite what you would expect. You would think that AI systems or crawlers could do those computations more efficiently. Anyway, I'm getting too deep in the topic. Basic gist is the web fucked? Do we need to think about some alternative to the web? I don't know if I sort of shared enough to get us started on that topic, but that's sort of the gist. I don't know if I think at this point I'm just rambling on.
Matt, I have more questions than answers. If I just ask questions about this topic and we can deep dive into it.
Yeah, I think that would be a good place to go. This episode is definitely more of us opining on this concept rather than having a strong data backed stance on it. So I think it's more of let's dig into this topic.
Is it all stemming from AI? Is that where this is coming from? In the new crawlers that are coming out of AI?
I think so. In the recent news, we've seen Cloudflare sort of punching at Perplexity a little bit, and that's not necessarily to date the podcast episode, but that was something that was happening where it's Perplexity crawls these websites in order to source content for their AI search engine. ChatGPT does the same thing. Claude does the same thing. Basically any sort of model service provider does this practice. And it's an interesting thing of most websites, I would say, that were built or have been built for humans to consume. And so it's an interesting sort of dynamic of what does it mean for an AI crawler to crawl your website or visit your website? Is it the same as a human visiting it? Is it different? Is it, some places have opted to, deny sort of maybe what we'll call classic web bots, right? Classic web sort of bad bots or whatever, bad bot behavior. Whereas like, something like Googlebot might be considered good bot behavior in the sense of like you want your site to be indexed, so let Googlebot crawl through it. But these newer bots, these new like agent crawlers are like, kind of a blend between good and bad, right? Like good means your site gets surfaced on this AI service when another user is using it. Bad maybe means that you're not, maybe not converting a customer or something like that, right? You're not getting, if you serve ads on your site and that's how you get value out of your content, then you're not getting paid for those ad, sort of, the agent doesn't really see an ad or doesn't interact with an ad. So it's like, what does that mean for getting paid on your content you publish potentially?
Oh, that's a big pro for AI. That's a big pro for AI. Less ads. Man, you're making the
Well,
case
is
right now.
it? Well, hold up. Okay, from a consumer standpoint, yes, right? Like I don't want to see
Yes.
ads, but from a producer standpoint, like what if I make 95% of my revenue from ads, right? Now what happens?
No, I totally agree with that. I'm saying from my standpoint, less ads. You're making a case for me to like that.
Well, I think yes, but like I think it's like maybe I think that's maybe also one of the deeper flaws of our current web architecture is like the only way to make money off of it essentially is to use ads, or like that's like sort of the de facto way to make money, right? Like you can put a paywall in front of your content instead. That's like an alternative. That's maybe more I don't know the right word, but like sort of ethical, or ethical is not really the right word, but it's like sort of more true to the nature of like what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get money for your content, right? So like that could be the better option, but ads is sort of like the de facto standard that we solidified around.
Yeah, I guess I just also kind of want to call out similarly. I remember reading some like articles and a lot of people posting, right? The death of the browser has been like a hot um, way to phrase it. But with things like MCP, um, stagehand is another alternative ways for AI to basically crawl your site or go to your site and do actions humans used to do. Like we're in this like transitory period where it's like, will AI start to just crawl things and you just stare at some singular UI and ask it questions and return the prompts and data to you, or like things like CSS and accessibility for your website still going to matter if AI is just crawling it? How do we navigate that in the future? I guess I'm just more so opening up the conversation as to like some of the other background. I know you maybe don't agree, Matt, but I do think that like um, there will be an attempt to preserve some of the current status and like keeping it human, but I don't think that there's a clear like outlook of like what the answer is. I think with the hotness of AI right now, everyone's just gonna be like everyone that's AI forward or startup forward is like, no, this is the future. They want to sell you that. Um, and maybe it is. I think this is where I don't really have a strong opinion. But I do think there are some current use cases that just haven't been covered by AI, and maybe they will. But like I brought up to you, like browsing an e-commerce site and seeing multiple products. I know that AI can do this now. It'll give you like a few things, but sometimes you don't. Some people just browse to browse, or you want to see more than like three, and I'm sure you can ask for more of it. But I feel like I still currently in its current state have more control when I'm navigating a large e-commerce store, and I can kind of move around. So for a human, do the experience of going to a website currently is still superior. Like I do think that if you're getting just content directly from an AI chatbot, that is a superior experience. You can find the thing you need faster. Basically, instead of going to Google and then jumping off multiple sites, AI does it really well and gets you what you need quicker. So I'm not saying that AI won't overtake that e-commerce experience, and maybe it will next week. I don't know, but I do think that AI does some things really well right now, where there are other things it doesn't do as well.
Yeah, I think one thing I maybe want to like dig in a little bit there is like, do you think that perspective that you have, Scott, and like I think a lot of people probably have the same perspective. Do we think that's like a bit like a old man yells at the cloud sort of perspective of like, like that's the way that we're comfortable getting that content of like browsing an e-commerce site or like, I don't know, maybe not the case anymore, but 2 years ago it was like going to Stack Overflow to try to understand like some debugging step that we're trying to look at. Like, do you think it's because we're comfortable doing that's why we lean towards like that's still valuable?
I think just currently there's more tools to be rewarded. Like we've invested more in like filtering and sorting and having the ability to see those things. But I don't know what the answer of that is on ChatGPT. But like I do still use it. But the thing about using AI, ChatGPT or whatever is like when I do that, it just grabs what it thinks. And sometimes just seeing more options is better. There's probably going to be a way where it's more refined in the future. I just can't tell you what that is. I'm just stating like in this current like transitory period, I think that's one area where a website still shines. Now, I personally don't believe that all web UIs will just die right away. However, I kind of feel like those who want to make more money or those most invested in AI right now would love to see like get us to that end as fast as possible and see what that looks like. Um, I think there's going to be a longer transitory phase until we morph into something, unless a really big AI gap or leap occurs again. Like I think just ChatGPT in general was a really big AI leap, right? I remember when the three of us were working together and we were just first using it. I remember it was a little more wrong or a lot more wrong than it even is today. Like today, it's even more accurate, faster with less quality prompting. Um, so I do think like this whole question though, I guess the death of the browser, like will the browser no longer really serve a human as much as you go to this one interface, one of a few interfaces, and it does the work for you is a real question. I don't know how fast it will evolve, I guess.
think I think it'll evolve pretty quickly. Like we've already sort of seen, yeah. Like kind of digging into your point, Scott, of like you don't think like the web will sort of just like I don't know, flick of a switch or like sort of snap of fingers, just like sort of immediately change. I think it's um, maybe not necessarily graceful, but sort of like dramatic degradation over time. Or at least I'm starting to see this also. And this is like one of the links we can link off to is this blog post talking about this like Anubis feature, but it's like that is already something that has become even more apparent to people, right? Like 2 years ago, this wasn't a thing or wasn't widely adopted as a thing, and already it's like starting to become like a prohibitive feature for humans browsing the web, right? So like it's just like a sort of a negative feedback cycle of like we implement the system in order to stop AI from it, but now it's making it a higher burden for humans to browse the web like they used to. And so I think that's like an interesting sort of we're trying to fight the fire, but by fighting the fire, we're also like making it worse, right? Like we're flooding the basement.
I'm in agreement that like I do think like we're going to continue to see change quickly. I guess like and maybe it is old man yells at cloud. I don't know. Eh, I don't know. Like I don't want to say like I'm for it. I just feel um like this it's likely that we're going to be in this period for a while because there's morality and ethical concerns that people talk about, and there's also like a lot of what Tollbit was doing and what Cloudflare did, of like you write content and you put it on the internet, and a company is just going to scrape that data through robots, and companies like Tollbit and Cloudflare are actually like, actually, do you want to block that agent? I'm pretty sure I've also heard that now these AI companies are just going to spin up new agents and be even more disingenuous, which is fine. Like I have no stake in this game anymore. But um, the point is like that alone is one attempt to like try to preserve this for a certain audience, like people writing content that like that the content is their value and their business. So there are going to be some like pros and cons to keeping things, or sorry, not pros and cons, but attempts to keep things the way they are. And like you said, whether that's old man yells at cloud or not, like I am in the camp that like if I write content at some level, I should have ownership of that content. And if creating paywalls like this or ways to block the data from being in one centralized place is the way to do it, maybe it's not. Maybe like I kind of I'm a little tug and pull here. I feel like it should be able to be in an easy centralized place, but also I feel like people should have value for it. So there are just like there's a lot of different concerns that I think are just being teased out on the fly, and that's why I think this is like a transitory space. Although, like I agree, rapidly evolving. Like we're doing more and more MCP stuff at work. Like I see people building with Playwright, um, telling Playwright to basically write storybook tests was something we covered, and just using MCP to do it. So it's like more and more developer jobs are just like, hey, AI, do this, and I'll like watch you and make sure it's okay. I do still think the web is going this route. It's just what it looks like and how quickly we get there and remove the old. I don't think it's going to be like cassettes to CDs to just everything's an MP3 now. I think it's going to be a little bit of a slower process. I think websites there'll still be use cases for some of the low level websites for some time period.
I guess, do you think, and this is maybe sort of pivoting a little bit, maybe us like sort of thinking a little bit about the future, do you think it's like reasonable to consider what like a fork of the web could look like in the sense of like, what if we intentionally split off the part of the web that is crawlable by agents or by AI or by bots, and the part that isn't, explicitly blocking and actually like enforced blocking at the server level, right? Because Dylan in the side chat brought up like robots.txt, which is a very common thing that a lot of people reach for, but
Right.
it's at best it's a recommendation, and it is not enforceable at all. And so it's like,
Right.
Multiple bot crawlers do not look at robots.txt, right? They just don't care about it. So I guess like, thinking forward a little bit, do we think it's reasonable or, a possibility even to consider a hard fork of the web and a split between what is bot friendly and what is explicitly anti-bot content or websites?
I can't even like foresee how that would work. Like I feel like people would just spoof everything on the internet.
I mean, I could see like a Google like platform that stems up that's like the anti-bot hero site that's like a Google and also does like paywall stuff. You pay us and we protect your content and we're your new Google search engine. I could see something like that trying to be built. I mean, more realistically, that probably occurs from like Google buys it or Google builds it, but some bigger corporation. But I could see an attempt to like divide or fork these things. I think that's like a real like I think we're coming up with startup ideas on the fly here and giving them away, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but maybe we trademark them before we release the episode. That like one thought that I had in this area was like, what if we model it a little bit like RSS feeds and feed readers from the early aughts, where it's like your feed reader was essentially a naive database to back up a search engine, right? Like you could build search on top of your feed reader, and you can search through your feeds, right? And so, for context, like some websites, some content-based websites publish an RSS feed, which is basically a feed, a collection of every update that they push to the website. So new blog posts, new content, whatever. Same way podcasts work, right? It's like essentially the same thing. And a feed reader allows you to consume multiple different feeds from multiple different places across the web. So like, could you set up an environment where people are monetarily incentivized, for example, to add their feed to a central listing, and then can consume from that central listing, and the content is only published in that listing, and so like yes, a user on their own machine could probably have an AI pull down that and see that feed, but it's not. It's like at that point, it's looking at the content on your own system rather than hitting the server that's hosting the content itself. That to me seems possible, but it is like a little bit of like a sort of scaling network problem of like, okay, like you have a great idea, but like how do you get people to get in on it or whatever, right? You have to like the incentives have to be aligned for the consumer and the producer of the content.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see though that like we're at kind of, I feel like when I've been saying transitory period, fork in the road, kind of, we're in a very experimental place. But not to pull it too far aside, I wanted to also bring up like I don't feel like the web, and we've talked about this in past episodes. I don't like, especially feel like the web is in the best place even prior to this. Like we were just we've talked about like UX patterns, UI patterns, where everyone just uses the same pattern library ideas, and I feel like I've actually seen some cool stuff. Maybe that's just because I'm an engineer and I see like some really good UX guy do something cool, or UI folks do something cool. But I mean, a lot of the websites, they are basically the same now, right? And um, it even with, I mean, more so with AI, like this independent web kind of concept has gone away like slowly and slowly since the 90s. And Facebook's a great example of, you go there and every single thing you're doing is just being monetized data about you to serve you ads later. And there's a ton of ads. And I even remember when I started, I'm hitting a lot of things here, I apologize, but like SEO spam, like I remember when it was like, let's just punch a bunch of keywords in a meta tag, and this is how we do SEO. So the web in general has been getting more and more gamified. It's really just like, what's the latest and greatest idea to gamify it and maximize your platform being seen. I feel like AI is the current state of that. It's crazy because a chatbot is not a new concept, but the concept of apparently scraping everyone else's data and attaching it to a chatbot is revolutionary, with the power of machine learning behind it. But I almost feel like, maybe this is obvious, but the web has like always been a melting pot of, let's see what sticks, and what gains traction, and it's often really simple ideas that do, whether that's like Google's search bar, one input on their website and making it really powerful, or it's a ChatGPT or Claude chatbot that's have also just an input, but it gives you some text back, right? Like some of the most simplest ideas have been the most revolutionary.
I feel like with ChatGPT, it's very different though, because it's like taking away all the control from companies on how their content's shown. So to me, it's more of like a legal issue that maybe we're so far in the early stages. Maybe there are a lot of legal battles. I'm just not following them. But I think there's potential that like a lot of these companies eventually, maybe not. Maybe the government's so far behind them that this just never happens. But I feel like that eventually they could be like blocked on some of these things because they are. If you really boil it down to what's actually happening, to me at least, it feels like they're going into your store online and they're stealing all your shit, and they're being like, I'm gonna like show it to people and uh, in a way that I want to, that you never considered, um, and you can't do anything about it. So that's kind of how it feels to me. So like it's good for consumer in some sense, but you're also completely changing the way that that company or brand wants the consumer to experience that content.
That's exactly kind of like the Tolbit side of things, where they're trying to put like, blocking and paywalls around taking their content. Because I have also been in the camp where I mentioned like moral and ethical concerns. It feels like to just crawl somebody's website like is quite wrong, especially without their express consent. Especially like Matt did say, robots.txt, it's solely a recommendation. But like to have no guardrails around it does seem like pretty extreme. Um, I don't know. I guess I'm just agreeing with you. I also don't really love that. But as a consumer of that, it's great, right? Like it is and it isn't. I still write things, I guess, like that are personal that I'm like, I'm going to do this without AI. I don't want to be influenced. I might use AI to help me think of ideas, but I really use AI for things that are more not original in thought. Like if I'm gonna approach a problem writing code or whatnot, or especially when I'm writing code, like I try to stack my ideas against it.
It is interesting. I kind of like your metaphor there, Dylan, of like, you know, someone walking, or at least in my mind, the way I was interpreting it is like someone walks into a grocery store, takes photos of everything on the shelves, and then lists it on their own, you know, I don't know, pamphlet or whatever that they mail out to people, and they resell the product at a markup or something like that. It is interesting. It did make me think that like we've, yeah, I don't know, coincidentally or intentionally, sort of over the past 40 years or something, we've sort of been on this journey or path of like, it becomes increasingly cheaper to produce and share content, right? Like prior to the internet, you had to, you had to like physically, or maybe even prior to computers, right? You physically make a product, and then you have to, find some place to market it and sell it, right? Like the cost to do that is very high. Whereas now that we have the internet, we have computers, we have a lot of technology, it's like incredibly easy to create content that you can sell. But then, it's like just because it's easy that, now that your cost is down, it's also far easier for someone to, rip it off or whatever, right? To resell it, to, reproduce it and mark it up or whatever they want to do, right? Which is maybe not the best analogy, the best metaphor for like what AI is doing, but it is interesting. It's like, it's far easier for someone, to crawl a website and put that crawl results somewhere else and put their own ads or paywall behind it or whatever it is, than what it probably could have been if you were publishing a book instead, right?
Maybe it feels like it to me that we're talking about this more from like how does it affect commerce more than anything, and that's okay. Maybe that's better, more of our perspective here.
Oh, you made me think of another thing too, but I guess like the devil's advocate point I was trying to make is like if no one was trying to monetize the internet, then like this concept of like let's just make it really easy for everyone to access everything, everyone could get on board for. It's like really the profit motive and taking away people's ability to make profit. I'm not saying that it's bad. Like if it's really the smaller businesses or the smaller independent folks, less the corporations that you really care about in this sense of like, don't just take my data and this big corporation or this bigger entity just, takes what I have and uses it, like in your analogy.
I think, we are talking a lot about like the commerce side of things. I think it's, part of me wonders, and I haven't like fully formed this thought yet, so like I'm still thinking through it, but it's like, I think there's already sort of a small community of vocal advocates, or, I don't know, the opposite of advocate, saying like this is going to sort of ruin the community that they know, right? In the same way that it's like, you sort of always see this when you have a change, right? Like, I don't know, pulling from our history or examples of, it's like, when CSS and JS came out, there were a ton of people that were like, hold up, I enjoy writing CSS in CSS files. I feel like there's a craft to that. There's this like, pleasure that someone gets from doing that versus like writing it in JavaScript files. Like, what is this? In the same way, like, people reacted to JSX, right? It's like JavaScript isn't meant to have XML within it. Like, I think there's like sort of these small holdouts. Part of me wonders is like, do we think that that holdout group for a sort of human-centric web experience could be big enough to cause a fundamental shift there, right? So it is like complete pivot from e-commerce, but it's like, like, are there enough vocal advocates to say, actually, I enjoy browsing the web as is without, the degradation of experiences thanks to, AI blocker, sort of proof of person or proof of work or whatever in order to access content and things like that. Like, do we think that could be big enough in this slice to cause, whether or not intentionally, cause sort of a split between these environments of like bot friendly things and sites versus bot unfriendly sites and apps or whatever?
Personally, no, because I feel like wherever the money is in tech, that's who kind of like owns the internet in a sense. They like run the web, and this is just where things are headed. All the money and funding is going in that direction right now, and it's just like a snowball. And I don't know if anything can actually slow it down at this point until it like either like crashes or I don't know, like somebody puts their hand up and says, "Hey, you can't do this anymore," and they actually somehow listen. Because I don't even at this point it's so Wild West that I don't know that it can even be slowed down.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, you there probably were people that were like, actually, I don't want to let Google crawl my website back in late 90s, early aughts, right? But like you never hear them because they they no longer exist. And so like, yeah, it's it's like kind of like history is written by the winners, not the losers sort of thing.
Yeah, that's my pessimistic take on it. Is just like if there's money somewhere, it always wins, which is kind of sad, but true. But how do you
Yeah.
move on from this conversation? I just leave it on a sad note.
I just I guess I just agree that like whoever has the money, whoever's doing the experimentation, they're going to continue down the same trajectory. People are going to try to create this revolutionary concept of a um, MCP or whatever AI agents do everything for you. You just talk to an input field. The simplification, I guess, of the web. Like we're going to continue down this trajectory, but I guess like one point. And I guess this is few and far between, but you still see like spacejam.com. Is that the website? Like websites that look like they're from the 90s, old forums. They do still exist. Now, like, do I think that like 50% of the web is going to become like modern day websites versus just like one site? Like what happens to all the domains we own? I don't know. I think that like our websites will still exist, right? Like my personal resume and portfolio. But like, do we, I don't know what the future looks like. Do we not care about styling them? Do we consume them in a different way? I mean, RSS feeds didn't really work, but maybe they do for some people. So it's interesting to me. A lot of times, basically, we build these tools with one use case in mind, like a QR code or an RSS feed, and it gets used um, in a different way than that's perceived, right? Like QR codes became menus, they became now they're like pass keys. So new uses came for them. So will the modern website have new uses? It sounds like with AI we will, but like, does that mean the old use cases of visiting the modern website in a browser still exist? I don't know. It's very up in the air.
The more we talk about this, Matt, the more I'm just like, yes, it's fucked.
But that's where I just want to bring up that it was fucked like before
It's even
this.
more fucked.
It's just getting the fuckery is on a whole new scale.
The one of the thoughts that came to me earlier, and I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget, is basically like AI can feel really good from like a consumer, like the user standpoint, and I think a big part of that is that it's like a people pleaser. Is the thing I always think about is like it sort of will confirm your biases. So if you like write a question in a certain way, it'll sort of like it'll see where your bias is and sort of tie into that because it wants to make you happy with the result. And that's another thing of like if I ask something about some company or something else and I word it in a very specific way, it may shift the like perspective of that answer in like a weird direction that you never wanted or expected. So that's like another part of this where it's just like this is so fucked because content just like morphs and shifts in weird ways. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a classic. Well, I don't know. In my mind, I'm thinking of this as like kind of a classic exploitation example, right? Like we've seen this in the past with, for example, Spotify, right? Spotify makes quite a bit of money by reselling music, but then they don't really pass on all that money to the creators of the music, right? Certain artists can make a good deal with Spotify, right? Like, I'm sure Taylor Swift, although I think she pulled her music from Spotify, maybe it's back on, but like she probably makes a decent amount of money from it. but like other creators, like, you know, cents on the dollar or less than cents on the dollar for their music being streamed, right? So like and yet the consumer, the person that listens to Spotify, they probably enjoy it, right? They get a lot of value out of their subscription by listening to music and whatnot, right? Like they get what they want. And so I think it's like, maybe this is like a common story even besides the internet, but it's like, you know, people using Google to get answers were like, great, they get a lot of value. The people being crawled by Googlebot are like, oh no, we're, you know, our servers can't hold up to the traffic of Googlebot, for example, right? Like, I think it's just a common example of like, we sort of pinch the producer side of the market as hard as possible in order to extract the most value for the consumer side of the market. And that's probably exactly what we're seeing with AI and like agents crawling the web, right? Like the person using ChatGPT or Perplexity or whatever is getting a lot of value out of their use, but the people providing the content that like supports those things, you know, obviously they don't get like sort of ad impressions if they have ads on their content or paywalls or whatever. Like they're not getting the value out of it that they used to.
It's almost like you're saying someone builds a middleman and one side gets screwed. The consumer enjoys it, and now the middleman gets fat and happy. Sounds like America's healthcare system.
Yeah, it's probably every market, honestly.
Yeah. But that is what it is, right? Like we talked about this, I remember in the elevator working together, that Spotify started off like as like an illegal business. They didn't have rights to the music in early days. So yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like, and again, there's this illegal gray area. Like these AI companies technically don't own this content. They just are arguing that they're serving it in a certain way, right? Or they're not doing anything with it. But all the value of their product is without the data, their product is pretty much useless, right? So like there's no regulation, and it's really partially a regulatory problem. Plus, if no one's going to regulate it, nothing's going to stop these companies from continuing to push down this trajectory. And you know, I don't want to sound negative at all towards either side here, because I do think there's a lot of value in being able to access information even faster and easier than Google, right? In a chatbot. But there's also like the implications of you know this because I did this thing, and now someone else can profit off my like concepts. So it's like it's a real interesting two-sider. And once again, I don't want to just talk about the AI making the web terrible. The web has been terrible now, I think, for almost since like 2010s, right? Like, or late 2010s. I feel like we've gone down this path of everything looks the same, everything uses the same thing. Yeah, sorry, Dylan.
No, there was something that Matt said around like Google and how we've gone from Google to AI, and it made me think of like with Google, there's ads, right? That people pay to like have their result in the top 5 results. And I don't know that we're like really seeing that sort of thing with AI yet. Maybe we are and we don't even know it. Like, and what I mean by that is, are companies going to, or are they already paying OpenAI to like rank their content higher than other companies? And I feel like that's what I expect to happen. Like that's their like next way to make tons of money, is they can just be like, hey Google, you give me $1 billion and like I'll it doesn't really make sense for Google, but you know what I mean? Like some other company, Apple, and then it only shows Apple products at the top or something.
The format of ChatGPT is that like it's probably hard to do that. I guess with a RAG pipeline you probably could, but like just the way that the model works, it's like you have to train the model on certain data sets. So it's like you sort of need to pay that money 5 years in advance in order for that data to show up in the training set that the model is then trained on and released, you know, a few years later or whatever.
AI was just shifting a conversation though that we were already having. Is Google was doing things that a lot of sites didn't like, where you get indexed on Google, and then now like basketball scores or information about products, all of this stuff is just showing up on their platform. And there were already regulatory discussions occurring, like, is this correct or corrupt? Like now you don't have to go to the website that's being indexed anymore, because there are now just UIs on Google. And as a consumer, I liked it. There's some that aren't good, but I liked it when it's like giving me like I can just go to Google and get a basketball score. But maybe that's not the best example because maybe you don't. There's less monetization there, or it's just ads on the basketball website or whatnot. But there are things like you would go to and basically they would just build a UI for it. I know it's like products all the time now, and it's just like maybe it serves you a product website, but like it's also just like not getting you off of their platform. So it's less time you're spending on the actual website. This is like almost no different than what AI chatbots do. The chatbots maybe to a little bit of a worse extreme, but I feel like this conversation was being had, and the AI boom has just shifted it more in an even more specific way. So like maybe one could argue that something like this led to the ability to do that with there being no resolve around whether or not that was like moral or ethical. Yeah. It's not really an open web for everyone if like certain spaces can just be like, oh, come to us to find the things you need, and then turn it into a business or corporation where it's like, oh, don't even leave us anymore. It's almost like we own the internet or we are the internet when if the idea is for everyone to have the access to it, there needs to be like some like monetization agnostic platforms where people can trust and go to navigate to places. But like all of this has never really been solved. Google just kind of beat out the competition, and now AI chatbots are beating out the input because you get even more simplified to you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's again, like we sort of started this episode with, it's like we don't know anything else, on top of, we're not like privy to information that our listeners aren't privy to. Like there's nothing that we know that our listeners don't know. So it's like a lot of this is us sort of speculation, and speculating like what could happen or what might happen based on what we've been seeing so far. Yeah, and it is kind of like maybe a little bit pessimistic. I think a lot of our episodes maybe unfortunately have this sort of trend of just because we're touching upon topics that are, I think, really interesting and sort of top of mind or topical at the time. So who knows? Maybe 5 years from now we do a throwback episode and we revisit this and say where did we turn, what were we right about, what were we wrong about. At that point we're probably all going to be in the metaverse and recording it virtually and with a live audience or whatnot, and we'll be able to laugh at ourselves for saying that we were worried about the web dying or something.
Well, I don't think the web's going to die or go away, but we could say one common thread that's clear that we all agree on is we're going to continue down this path for better or worse. And the trajectory is clear. We need to embrace like where this might lead us.
Yeah. All right. With all that said, well, I guess like any other wrapping up closing thoughts from folks? Otherwise, we can probably jump into our stand-up update.
Next episode, we can dig deep on the environmental impacts of AI. Since we haven't talked about that.
Oh man, we probably should.
I don't know enough, but I feel like I should do some research and we could talk about that sometime in the future.
I'm gonna say thank you to ChatGPT right now. Hold on. Thank you for everything.
I'm gonna tell it we're fucked because of you.
I also don't know enough about the energy side of things, but I feel like a lot of people blow it out of proportion. So yeah, maybe that's the hot take I'll say for that episode. All right, with that, let's jump into our stand-up update. It's been a while since we've done a stand-up update. Dylan, what's up with you?
I don't know. I've been doing a lot of traveling, but not like going really far. Went to New York over the weekend. That was fun. Took the Amtrak for the first time. That was fun. It was just so chill versus like flying or driving. And then around my house, I got some mini splits installed to take over my old heating system and no longer need AC units in the windows. So I'm pretty hyped about that. You can tell by the tone of my voice how hyped I am. No, I actually am hyped. I'm just tired. Oh, but yeah, that's about it right now. Work's been busy, but it's finally chilled out because I got through like an early the rollout of a new project, and things have been going pretty smooth, which is really great. It's allowing me to like slow down a little bit and focus on some like performance things and quality things. So it's been good. What about you, Matt?
Not too much. Yeah, work's been picking up. I feel like I'm starting to gain some momentum on understanding this gnarly code base that I work within. Um, Outside of work, I feel like side projects have sort of been like in sort of a slump of haven't really been able to like put a lot of energy and momentum into working on it. So I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I was doing doing pretty well in terms of like working on a lot of things at the start of the year, or sort of, I don't know, Q2. But now I've sort of slowed off, and you can kind of see this in my GitHub contribution stats. It's like green squares are dwindling. So I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe a bad thing. Yeah, and then tomorrow we're taking off for Edinburgh for a week. So looking forward to that. Should be nice. Going up to the Scotlands, or the Highlands in Scotland. Hopefully going to see some Highland cows.
You seen any any relatives?
No.
Do you have any relatives in Scotland? You feel like I'm like casting you as being Scottish based on your
Well,
thing, but
technically, on my mom's side, before they were from New Zealand, and they originally came from Scotland and New Zealand. So very far back, probably like impossible to actually draw the lineage from it, but technically it's there. I
yeah, I could tell.
Yeah, that's about it. Scott, what's up with you?
Technically, I have like a small bit of Scottish in me too. I don't know any ancestry there, but fun fact. Maybe we're related, Matt. We have a common ancestor. Well, in my personal life, I'm getting married in a week, so that's very exciting. It takes up some time, so that's happening.
Nice.
Congrats.
Thank you. At work, we're still finishing up the migration from Datadog to Telescope, or sorry, Datadog to Grafana. We call it Telescope. Script's going great. Ask me about PromQL. Yeah, Datadog is really magical. Does a lot of things for you. Makes things a lot easier. That was fun.
I thought you were like a front end engineer. What are you doing?
I signed up for this in a very Pollyannish manner and was like, I want to learn about the monitors. I worked on monitors once.
Are you just helping migrate like the web monitors over to Grafana, or are you doing some more like infra type work with that?
Yeah, so we have dashboards and alerts, and the dashboards for the most part were migrated, but not all of them are accurate, so they need some tuning. And then some show no data because in PromQL, if your metric returns like null or undefined, it might not return zero. Like it's not as forgiving as Datadog. So a lot of it is like figuring out those issues and tuning it in the dashboards. As far as monitors, anything that was in the code prior, we have a code mod that will migrate it, but most of them aren't. So those I have to basically take from Datadog and write as alerts in JavaScript with a package we have that will handle it. I didn't really look into what our package is. If it's PromQL, but I don't know if it's just like a wrapper, an internal wrapper around something that's open source. I imagine it is. But essentially, we just need to set those alerts up there. So there's a translator tool that will translate it to make sure that it's accurate, or make some tunings to that, and then write that in JavaScript. So we're getting close to the end there. And then I can finally get back to my visual diff project that I'd been working on for a long time. I presented that at, so I'm on the community support team. So I presented that at a demo day, and there were a lot of excited folks. Engineers use the tool I work on, if I have not stated that, and a lot of excited engineers that this will make their workflow easier. So hoping to do that through September and deliver a V0 or MVP of that. So that's very exciting. And I also don't think I mentioned this, but I did an on-site at work my first on-site back in, oh my goodness, was this like mid-July? I don't remember exactly. We haven't recorded in so long, and that went well. I'll just stop there. That's enough updates.
Was that in San Francisco?
It was in San Francisco. It was great.
Nice.
I broke the one rule everyone set. It was to take a Waymo. I did not take a Waymo. I don't know. Maybe I will next time. I just took a good old Uber.
They are like, sometimes maybe $10 more expensive than an Uber for the same route, which is kind of wild. You would assume it's
That is
cheaper,
wild.
but I think they're still trying to find their scale.
The amount of Waymos on the street, though, is like insane. It's insane.
They're coming to Boston soon.
Wow.
So that's exciting.
How soon do you know?
I don't know, but they've been doing test drives around the city. So
okay, hey Matt, did that Italian sandwich shop open up by you? Like very important. You need to report back on that.
You say it's by me, but it's like 2 miles away. It's a hassle to get there. I don't know if it's open yet or not. Though.
Slightly less than 2, but okay, even if it's 2 miles, that's like 10 miles closer than me.
There's far better sandwich shops around me. So.
Oh my God. You got to let me know when it opens. It's right down the road.
All right. Let's call it there. Thanks everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to share it with people. Leave us a review on wherever you're listening to this podcast. That really helps, apparently. I think maybe we've dipped from being top 70 podcasts in Romania. Hopefully we go back up to above that top 70 mark. So the more people that listen, the more people leave us reviews, will help us hit that mark. In the US, maybe we're bottom 100, but we'll work our way up. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Catch you in a month, 2 months, 6 months, somewhere like there.
3 days. See you in 3 days.
See ya.
Peace.
Later.